We have a lovely in-studio guest today. Lovely is the theme today. Tina Sloan. She is the author of Changing Shoes, also a lovely book right there. Okay. And Tina's been an actress in the soaps for quite some time. In fact, she did 26 years on Guiding Light and 35 years in soap operas overall. So, Tina, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's talk about how you got started in acting, because I'm very curious about that.
I didn't eat the bananas. I kept giving them to the other actresses so they'd get fat. I was really thin.
So when did you start? When did you start?
I was late because my parents were so appalled that I wanted to be an actress. I mean,
oh,
I just
really?
Thought,
where'd you grow up?
I grew up right outside of New York City.
Oh, you did? And,
yeah.
And why were your parents appalled? Was it just
not
not a thing you do back then?
They were sort of intellectual, and they thought, yes, it's something you didn't do back then. It was sort of a bad girl thing to do.
Okay.
But
oh, so you're a bad girl. Okay.
Yeah, so that was part of it. But it was also that it wasn't smart enough. My mother said, you know, why aren't you teaching? Why aren't you writing a thesis or something? Why aren't you doing PhD work or something instead of being an actress?
Wow, that's super interesting. Why? Were they physicists or something?
No. My mother had gone to college, which in her day was unheard of, and to Columbia Journalism School. And my father had gone to Harvard Law School. So they were smart.
Oh, okay. All right. I
but
get it.
we weren't intellectual, really. They just perceived that we were.
Right. That's fascinating. And so what year do you go into acting, if I could ask?
I was 26.
You were 26, so okay, I see what you're saying. And so they say, okay, what am I going to do?
No, I was old enough to sort of say, I'm going to follow my own shoes. I'm going to follow my feet. I'm going to listen to myself.
What were you doing until then? Were you?
I got married and divorced and traveled a lot. Did a lot of commercials. I mean, I was among with all the models of that era, you know, and I'd sort of get the ones that had more lines in them. So I sort of realized I could do this. And so when a soap opera came up, I did it.
That's interesting. Who were the other models at the time?
Well, Lauren Hutton was the one that I would see most of the time. I mean, and I remember Eileen Ford once coming and saying, Lauren, you've got to fix that gap in your teeth. And then she looked at me and said, Tina, you've got to get your nose fixed. And I went, my nose, you know? And I went home and I remember looking in the mirror and going like this to my nose, trying to figure out what she was talking about. And then it seemed to me that it was huge. You know?
I like how you guys get in each other's heads.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
So was there rivalries and stuff? Did you ever catfight, pull her hair?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we all kind of helped each other, really.
Was the fashion industry back then the same as it is now?
No, it wasn't big at all. I mean, there were no Oscar de la Rentas, there were no Ferragamos, there were no really huge designers the way there are now.
So then what was your first major gig? Was it Guiding Light? Or?
No, it was Somerset. It was a soap opera called Somerset, which didn't last long. It was really, really a good soap opera, which is probably why it didn't last so long. And then I went on to another world where I was a Nobel Prize-winning cardiologist.
Oh, is that
Nobel
right?
Prize.
Okay.
I remember one time ordering a C-section or a CAT scan for a C-section. I mean, you know, I just had no idea. These massive words would come tumbling out, and I didn't have a clue.
So soap operas, crazy things happen. What's the craziest thing that ever happened to any of your characters? Alien abductions or no?
Oh, one time, it was live TV, you know, long ago when there were no special effects or anything. And I was seated as an extra, which meant I had no lines, and I was seated in a chair in an airplane at 17,000 feet, and there were lots of clouds going by, and the stagehands were making it feel like it was bumpy, and I'm sitting there very quietly. Do you want me to really tell you this, what I did?
Sure, yeah.
I was sitting there very quietly, and all of a sudden I felt something on my shoulder, and I heard, "How are you?" And I looked back, and it was the lead actor, and he'd forgotten his lines, and he was talking to me, and I was an extra, and I wasn't supposed to talk. I was terrified, and he said, "How are you?" And I remember I said, "Fine." And he said, sort of bumpy, and I went, "Fine." And he said, "Should we have dinner?" And I said, "This is my stop." I got up and I walked off the plane at 17,000 feet.
And they just rolled with the punches, right?
They were appalled. You could see the director just going. But, you know, I was so scared that I was like I was on a bus. This is my stop. And I walked off the plane. That's the worst thing I ever did.
Okay, all right, that's funny.
Aren't you glad you asked?
Yeah, that's an interesting story. So did you love acting?
I love it.
And you guys do it every day, right? Those soap operas. I mean,
it's like you, 5 days a week, yeah.
Yeah. And so when you get in there, you better have all that stuff memorized. And if you don't, you're going to have to improvise and step off the plane.
Well,
Right?
yeah, this is my stuff. You know your lines. You really know them. And if you don't last long.
Right.
You know, you go in prepared, and because you can't leave the other person hanging there.
When you got on a
So to
guiding,
speak.
yeah, well, certainly in that case, especially
Without a parachute.
Right now, if when you first got on Guiding Light, if somebody told you you're going to stay on this show 26 years, what would you have thought?
Oh, I would have laughed. You know, it just seemed impossible. Because I came on for 6 months to be the mother of an incest victim. My
Okay,
daughter
of
was going to be
course.
raped by my husband, yes.
Oh, Jesus.
Which he was. And I was going to kill him and then go to jail.
Okay, that sounds
But
right.
instead, no, because you're helping the world. If I'd killed him, every little girl wouldn't tell their mother what was happening. So I went to the producer and I said, if I kill him, no little girl's going to go tell mommy because she won't have mommy or daddy. And they listened, and we took him and put him in jail, and we went to rape crisis centers, and we really worked the story.
Oh, wow. That's
I mean, we
interesting.
really did something worthwhile.
Yeah. Did you want to do other stuff too, or
I did a lot of movies.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I played little parts with, you know, Al Pacino's secretary or Ben Affleck's mother-in-law. I've done a lot of that sort of thing.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And what do you like better, movies or TV?
Oh, I love TV. I love how fast it is. It's like being here. I mean, I was listening to you guys before, and I thought, this is so fun what you're doing. You're just ad-libbing and improvising and thinking fast.
That's what we do. By the way, we're talking to Tina Sloan. She wrote the book Changing Shoes, Getting Older, Not Old with Style, Humor, and Grace, which obviously you use on display here, you can see. So, Tina, how did Guiding Light finally stop production after 72 years, which is amazing.
Amazing.
In 2009. What's happening to the soap operas? Are they...
Oh, I think they're all going. Maybe Young and the Restless is going to make it, but I think you know, they're very expensive. We cost $180 million. We got down to $130 million. Yes. Don't you feel? Hey, and we were all thin women. That's why we were all thin women, and all the men were 170 or what, 207 pounds.
That's right. So no, seriously, per year it costs $180 million to do Guiding Light?
Well, because we got down to 130 because you have huge studio space. You have hair, makeup, wardrobe, and you know we all had tons of clothing, tons of shoes, tons of hair, makeup, people, lots of cameramen.
And you're doing it in New York, which is very expensive.
Very expensive.
Right.
Just to have our own dressing rooms.
Right.
And the actors cost a fair amount of money. Tons of wardrobe people, and all the cameramen, the crew, the sound, it was just an immense job. Production.
So two things probably wound up happening. Ratings are going down because television ratings are going down for everything.
Everyone's working.
Right.
That's right.
Right. And then number two, these reality shows come along. Do you think they cut into it a lot?
O.J. Simpson came on the air, and I said, after watching him for a few weeks, we're dead. And everyone said, what are you talking about? I said, look, this is costing them nothing.
Right.
And everybody's watching it. We're costing a fortune, and, you know, we're dwindling. I knew it. I knew it. I remember I can see where I was standing. I was standing in the hair room, and I looked and I said, this is it. This is it for us. We're going to die because of this.
That's really interesting. So, you know, the book's about getting older, too. So TV's getting older, et cetera. How did you adjust to all that? How did you adjust to the change in the career? How did you adjust to, you know, within the...
I was diminished terribly. I mean, ageism is something that happens. I was diminished so much so that all, you know, the skimpy dresses disappeared, and it was the plots that were skimpy all of a sudden.
Right.
And, you know, I had 3 lines a day. I was a nurse. I was no longer a cardiologist. I was now a nurse. And my lines were, here, can I take your temperature? Here's your MRI. Where's Beth, my daughter? That's all I said, you know? And I'd go through the script 72 pages a day, and I used to have, you know, at least 20 pages. Now I had 3 lines. And
how does that feel?
oh, it was awful. It was just awful. I mean, I gained a ton of weight. I ate all the bananas. I gained weight. I started wearing black, flat, ugly shoes all day long with Dr. Scholl's. I started wearing sweatpants, no makeup, pulling my hair back. I mean, my whole life just went away. I mean, it evaporated.
And so how do you adjust to that? How do you deal with it with humor and grace and all that, especially in your field? Because it seems so much more relevant in your field.
So relevant. It's so relevant. You know, in my case, I remember making a list, and I decided I would stay on the show. It's sort of staying in the room keeps you in the game.
Yes,
I stayed in the
absolutely.
game by living through. I knew yin and the yang. It would come back, and it did. So that my wedding on the show was the end of the show. It was one of the big things.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't watch. I'm sorry,
I know
but
you don't. But I mean, I went from doing Here's Your Temperature to having a love affair and, you know, getting married. But I knew that things would come back. I wasn't sure, but I thought they would. So I stayed there, and that was the hardest thing to do, because where I used to run down to the set to do steamy love scenes or have terrible things happen to me, now I was just sitting there watching everybody else run past me down there. And sometimes they'd stop in my dressing room and say, "Did you ever do love scenes when you were young, Tina?" And they meant it nicely.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd go,
They didn't mean
yes,
bad by it.
Yes, they were sweet.
Right.
And I'd go,
I think
yeah.
there's, you know, I'm sorry, I just think it's so appropriate that they ended the show on your wedding, right?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
in so many ways. So that's fascinating. And by the way, the book is called Changing Shoes, and we're talking to Tina Sloan. So I want to go back to those questions they were asking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how was it back in the day? I mean, so now, you know, we always hear the stories of, oh, there was casting couches, there was this, there was that, and people played fast and loose with the rules. How much of that is true? Did you ever see any of that?
I only had it happen to me one time. It's in the book, as a matter of fact. It just didn't happen. I think in those days, being blonde-haired, green-eyed, thin, pretty was enough to work, and I was able to work. So I never had to get into that. I really, really didn't. Except one time, I remember I was up for this big part. Not big part. I was going to say, "Stay tuned for the next show." That was all. But it was a lot of money to me.
Right.
And I remember thinking, I don't know, it was $100,000 or something to say one line every day.
That is a lot of money. That's still a lot of money. Today, that's a lot of money, let alone back then.
70 something.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to be the richest person in the world. There were 4 of us, and then there were 2. And I remember the producer, he'd flown in from L.A. to interview us, and he came over to me and he said, "Would you like to have dinner?" and sort of fondled me or something. And I remember thinking, I think I was married. I'm not sure, but I think I was. And I was scared. I didn't know what to do. So I said, "Oh, I have to go." And the next morning when I came in, the other girl, I saw it all over her and all over them. He had the same clothes on he'd had on the night before. And there was just, you know, that look.
Yeah.
And so I was all over.
But you see, but that's why it's interesting, right? Because everybody thinks, well, I would never do that. And you didn't, right? Can you bless your heart?
Well,
but she made $100,000.
Yeah, but it didn't last long. And I got Somerset right after that. I mean,
okay.
But I remember I came home and I went to my parents. I wasn't married. I went home and I went to my mother and father. And I was just devastated. Because I really didn't believe that happened. And I don't know too many cases. Well, yes, I do. I do know a few. But
Tell us more.
I had one roommate on a soap I was on. And I remember she came in one day. She'd been on vacation. She came back with bosoms. She'd never had them before. And I remember I looked at her and I said, "Look what you got on vacation." And she said, "What are you talking about?" And I went, "Well," and she went, "What do you mean?" You know, she was denying it.
Right.
And she did have a lot of affairs with very powerful people, and she'd gotten somewhere in life with that. She's going to go nameless, obviously.
Of course, right.
But it did work for her. But, you know, now that I'm in my late 60s and I'm still working, I think, gee, I'm glad I did it my way. But we all have to do things our own way. I'm not saying one's right and one's wrong.
And when that girl, what was she from the earlier era or these days?
She was in an earlier era.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that worked for her, and
yes,
that happens sometimes.
It did. It worked beautifully for her. It sort of catapulted her to another place, you know. And I didn't have any problem with that because, you know why? Because she told people about it. She said, "I did this." Yeah, she did. She told me anyway, but she told me not to say anything. But she admitted it, and so I kind of admired her for admitting it. And for having the nerve to do what she did. I would never have the nerve to do it. That
is interesting. All right, now I'm getting sucked into this conversation. We got to go. But one more thing. How about the fame? You know,
we don't have it.
No?
Daytime doesn't have it.
You don't think so? People don't recognize you?
Oh, sure, people recognize you. But they recognize you as Lillian Raines, who is who I was.
Right.
They don't know that I'm Tina Sloan, and that's fine. But there isn't the kind of fame that you probably walk down the street, and people know you. They don't know...
Right, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
yes.
It was my character they loved.
So would they come and think that you were the character?
Oh, yes. When I had breast cancer, my character, people would call me if they were about to have a mammogram or a sonogram or they were going to have a double mastectomy. And I'd go down and I'd talk to them on the phone at work and say, "Good luck, you know, I'm right there with you." And, you know, we helped millions of people. One time I was on an airplane when I was a cardiologist, and this man had a heart attack. And the stewardess got on and said, is anybody on the plane a doctor? Nobody answered. Is anybody a nurse? No one answered. I finally went up and said, I know the words to say to him to make him feel good. I'm not either, but I will play it. So I said to him, your blood pressure is great. You're doing really well. You know, I can hear your heart, and it's not arithmetic. Or, you know, I was blah. But I got him down. We were in Arizona. I'll never forget it.
You literally did what you see all the time. You said, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
I did do it. I did it. But I didn't tell him. I told him I was.
So, of course, right. That's because you're an actress.
Right.
All right, everybody check out Changing Shoes. As you can tell, amazing stories in there.
They're funny.
Tina Sloan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. I had a lovely time.
Thank you. Young Turks.